Welcome back into the Sportsmemo College Football Every Game on the Board podcast with our next guest, Kyle Hunter. Kyle, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Doing well. How about yourself, Drew?
I'm doing good, bud. We're going game numbers 173 down to 196 on this segment with Kyle Hunter, following along on Sportsmemo odds page. That's just the rotation numbers of the games to the left of the team name. And if you have any questions due to betting, anything like that, feel free to hit us up on Twitter. The company Twitter is at Sportsmemo. Any questions for the podcast, feel free to throw them out there. Or hit me up on Twitter at Drew Martin Betts, or Kyle up on Twitter at
Kyle Hunter Picks. At
Kyle Hunter Picks. All right, almost had it there. But God, we got a good rundown of games here, and we'll start off in the Pac-12, 173, 174, 9 o'clock Eastern kick. Oregon State at Stanford, 60 the total, with Stanford laying almost 24. No, seeing a couple 24s out there, 23.5 as well. How would you look to bet this Pac-12 game?
Well, the first thing I thought that stands out to me about this game, who could have guessed that at this point in the season, Stanford would rank 10th in the nation in highest percentage of plays that are passing plays, 54.3%. That's pretty shocking if you ask me. This is a Stanford team that obviously wants to run the football, but they haven't been able to do it. Bryce Love being banged up all year certainly is part of it, but their offensive line isn't what they've been in the past either. I think here's the spot where Stanford's going to be able to move the ball both on the ground and through the air. Oregon State giving up 8.2 yards per play in Pac-12 action. They're allowing a whopping 7.63 yards per carry in Pac-12 play. That's some of the worst numbers you'll ever see. Some really bad defense from Oregon State. I will say Oregon State's offense has been better now that Jake Luton has come back, and certainly their best quarterback option. Stanford ranks 10th in the Pac-12 in defense as well, so this is not the typical Cardinal defense of old. My lean here is to the over. Problem here is Stanford has a lot of injuries. Arcega-Whiteside, their best receiver, is out with an injury. Bryce Love, questionable. And then I have to mention, just because he has the best name in college football, Jet Toner, the kicker for Stanford, is out as well. I don't know that matters too much to this handicap, maybe a little bit, but definitely the best name in college football.
Jet Toner, huh?
It's pretty awesome, huh?
Yeah, no, I like it a lot. So Jet will be out for that game, and we'll move on down the card to Middle Tennessee, UTEP. Looks like MTSU laying 13.5. This number's been bought down a little bit, taking some UTEP money. The Miners, I mean, they're not good by any means, Kyle, but they've covered some numbers here. They're not the worst team in Division I, like you could have made the argument for the last couple years. But 48 the total. You got any strong opinions on this one?
Well, I think this is an interesting handicap. How does UTEP respond after finally winning a game? 20-game losing streak, and then they win. I guess I would ask you, Drew, how do you view that? Because I know some handicappers would say that this is a letdown spot after working so hard to finally get that win. Others would say it builds some confidence. So how do you view a game like that?
To tell you the truth, Kyle, I wouldn't put a lot of emphasis into that. I would view more the team, the coaching, how the team's playing. And if gunned ahead, if I had to pick one outcome or the other, I would view it as a positive. But I wouldn't handicap it too strongly using that mentality. Would you?
No, not too much. I think that could be overblown as well. I will say that UTEP has been playing better, like you said, not just last week. I mean, they had some close calls against some high-quality teams. So I think my lean here is UTEP. Now, it was 15, now it's 13.5, so we've missed the best line, certainly. But it's a low total. This is a 48 totaled game, so 13.5 still a decent amount of points. If I had to play a side here, I'd take UTEP. Also, maybe look toward the under. UTEP's defense has been better than what most people expected. And Middle Tennessee's offense isn't explosive as it was a few years ago. Stockstill's been kind of banged up, and he doesn't have as many weapons around him anymore either.
Kyle, let's head to Athens, Georgia for the oldest rivalry in the South. Auburn at Georgia, 52.5 with the Bulldogs laying 14 in Sanford Stadium.
Yeah, Georgia's played a top 5 schedule in the country. They looked really good last weekend in Kentucky. I think that was a statement game. Georgia's best is certainly a lot better than Auburn's best. Georgia really reliant on the run, though, And I think the single strongest unit on this Auburn team is their defensive line. So is this a letdown for Georgia after last week? I mean, you could argue it is, but at the same time, Georgia knows that they've got to keep being impressive and winning the rest of the way. They already had their slip up. I think that this is a tough one as far as the side. I think if I was going to bet this game, I would bet the under. It's gone from 50 to 52.5. That's getting pretty high for two solid defenses like this. Both teams want to run the football as much as they can. I know Auburn plays a little bit up-tempo. Georgia plays very slowly. So I think this total's gotten a little bit too high at this point. Now, I'd be curious to hear your take a little bit since I know you're an Auburn guy.
Yeah, I mean, well, what? Auburn beat Georgia and Alabama last year, the two national championship contenders. But in those two games, those two wins, I believe Kerryon Johnson had 67 touches for, 350-plus yards in those two games combined. Obviously, he's with the Lions now, and Auburn has nobody of his potential on offense. So I think they're a little limited in offense. They did have that 5-minute explosion against Texas A&M, which got them the win, and now they're ranked, which is it's great for the program going to a bowl. But I just don't think the mentality of Stidham at the quarterback position is a great fit in Malzahn's offense. And I'm talking about his mentality not running the football. He can run. He's an athlete. He just doesn't do it enough. And the offense doesn't hum like it does some years. And it really is holding them back. So I think without Kerryon Johnson, without the running threat at the quarterback position like it could be, I'm not looking to bet Auburn, even catching 14. I think side perspective, I would bet Georgia. I haven't bet it yet. And, yeah, I'm with you on this under. I could see Auburn's defensive line giving Georgia some trouble. I mean, when you let Fromm have time to pass, he'll kill you, man. He can throw a good deep ball. But if you get after him, you can get in his face and stop their run attack. I like that, Kyle. I like the under. Have you bet it?
I have not bet it yet. This is one I've got circled to look at more here as we go through the week. I've also, seen the money coming in on the over, and I don't know how much this one's going to keep going up. I would assume that this is probably pretty close to the top. 52.5 for a game involving Georgia is a pretty high number. So definitely one that I'm going to look at further, and I will not be surprised if I take the under here.
In the Big Ten, some big names here. Wisconsin, Penn State, 55 the total, with the prevailing number being 9, some 9.5s out there in the marketplace, with Penn State laying that at home.
Yeah, so this is a game that I have a stronger opinion on than most of the others, I would say. Big Ten country here, where I'm from. I follow the Big Ten really closely. What is Penn State's motivation the rest of the way? They lost that heartbreaker to Ohio State, beat by Michigan State the next week, and then thumped by Michigan a couple weeks later. McSorley's clearly less than 100%, and he's the key to the offense. This team has fallen way short of expectations this year, and everything that they wanted to play for this season is gone. So how can you lay this many points with Penn State? Now, on the other side, Wisconsin certainly badly banged up. I know Hornibrook is questionable here as far as whether he's going to play, but let's be honest, he hasn't been very good. Wisconsin's going to try to run the football, and the weakness of the Penn State defense is against the run. They've been excellent against the pass, only 59th in the country in yards per carry allowed. I think Wisconsin's going to be running the football a lot. I think this is too many points. I would lean toward Wisconsin here, and this is one of my stronger leans. It's one that I'm considering to bet myself, just because of Penn State, honestly. I know Wisconsin's not been as good as everybody thought they would be, but I really just do wonder what's Penn State's motivation the rest of the way.
Kyle, two good defenses here in Alabama. We got Mississippi State visiting Alabama in Tuscaloosa. 53 the total, with Alabama laying 24 at home to the second-ranked scoring defense in the nation. Mississippi State giving up 12.3 points per game. Only 3 touchdowns in their last 5 games, I believe. So laying 24 to that type of defense is kind of rarefied air here, Kyle, but it is Alabama, and a lot of people making the argument this is the best team of possibly our lifetimes. But usually when those type of statements come out, best team ever type statements, it's been a while since we've kind of had those conversations. I remember them, with USC back in the day, and sure enough, they dropped that game to Texas. I'm talking about the Vince Young year. And so sometimes when those statements start coming out, it might be a sell high opportunity. But either way, how are you looking to bet Alabama 24 at home?
This is a tough game. I can't lay the points here with Bama coming off that dominant performance at LSU. I feel like that was where you listen to the players, the coaches after the game. They talked about consistently. Everybody said we haven't played anybody this year. We had to prove a point tonight. They proved their point. Listen, we know Bama's the best team in the country. It's going to be surprising if anybody beats them. They're scary good. I think the key too was Bama's defense. They've been kind of considered a little bit of a weakness this year, but what we saw last week was really important. I know LSU's offense is not that good, but keep this in mind moving forward if you're listening. Stats can be really skewed if you're up 35-0 at half every week. What's the incentive for the defense to be amazing in the second half when you know you've won the game? So, when they're ready to go and they're motivated the entire game, this Bama defense is really good as well. Mississippi State's defense is fifth in the nation in yards per play allowed. Bama's on another level than Mississippi State, but like you said, this is a lot of points to be laying with Bama off that game, and obviously also against a Mississippi State team that doesn't give up much. If I had to lean here, I'd lean toward Mississippi State, but I've pretty much promised myself I don't think I want to go against Bama here. This is a team that I faded once earlier this year, and I watched that game, and I thought, man, I've got to lay off this. To me, this is a good stay away, or maybe play the under. If you like Mississippi State's defense a lot, and you think Bama's defense is going to show up again, I think the under makes some sense. 53 and a half. I actually do like the under a decent amount here because I don't think Mississippi State's defense is going to get torched here. Obviously, their numbers are going to look worse after this game than they did before this game. And on the other side, Mississippi State's offense, Nick Fitzgerald, not a very good passer. When he's played the top defense he's played this year, he's really struggled. So I don't think Mississippi State will be doing very much scoring here.
Kyle, we got two option-style offenses, different type of option, but still, nonetheless, it's defensive kind of fundamentals and assignment football on that side of the ball, with New Mexico traveling to take on Air Force, 56 the total, with the Air Force Falcons laying 13.5 at home.
So there's a few things going into this handicap that I think are really interesting. New Mexico's close loss last week to San Diego State, very misleading game. They were beaten down in the box score. They lost 31-23, but they were outgained 401-142. That was a game where San Diego State gave them a couple touchdowns with turnovers, and New Mexico made it look like they played well and it was close. But make sure you look closely into a game like that, because that was not a game. The score was not indicative of the way the game went at all. On the other side, though, Air Force, coming off that key win last week against another service academy, Air Force is 3-14 ATS in their last 17 after facing Army or Navy. I think that makes sense. New Mexico is 6-0 ATS in the last 6 in this series. Having said all of that, I don't think I can bet New Mexico. If I had to lean one way, I would lean New Mexico. But I think New Mexico has quite a few problems there with Bob Davie and very questionable team chemistry. Even with the strong angles like that, I think it's a hard bet to make.
Moving down the card here, Kyle, we got an SEC battle, SEC East. Vanderbilt traveling to take on Missouri, 63.5 the total, with Mizzou laying 17 at home.
So Missouri's been pretty impressive here of late. They've played the third toughest strength of schedule so far this year. Vanderbilt 37th. I would lean toward Missouri here, and I would lean toward the over. I will say the value not near as good as what it was on the over. The over opened at 58.5, now all the way up, like you said, 63.5. It's a big move for this early in the week, certainly. Missouri is plus 155 yards per game so far this year at home. Vanderbilt, not a team I trust very much. I think this Vanderbilt defense is weak. They don't have the running game that they had a few years ago. If I had to play this game, I would take Missouri. Not a real strong lean from me, but again, on both of my leans here, we've kind of lost the best number. Missouri minus 14 up to minus 17, and then over 58.5 up to 63 or 63.5. But I think Vanderbilt's a hard one to take here. If you were going to take Vanderbilt, you'd have to trust them more than what I do.
Kyle, this next one, man, Nebraska laying 17.5. Are they that good, or is Illinois that bad? We got 69 the total in Lincoln, Nebraska.
I think it's some both. I think Nebraska is certainly getting better. They've improved a lot throughout the course of the season. Scott Frost, obviously a really good coach. Everybody knows that. Illinois, though, to me, the interesting thing is Illinois was so good on offense last week that they got Minnesota's defensive coordinator fired. That's hard to believe if you look at Illinois throughout the course of the season. Then they put up a huge number against Minnesota. Minnesota fires their defensive coordinator. There's going to be a lot of tempo in this game. I know the total is 69. Keep an eye on the weather forecast. As long as the weather's good here, I think I would take the over. There's going to be a lot of possessions in this game. Both teams wanting to play fast, taking some shots. Nebraska's offense clearly getting better week by week, but Nebraska doesn't have a very good defense. Illinois, an extremely weak defense. I think this is one of those games where it's hard for the odds makers to put up a high enough number in the Big Ten because, you think of Big Ten, you think of lower scoring games and a little bit more running than the average games. And obviously Nebraska, the same thing. But these teams are a lot different than they used to be. Both of these defenses very weak. I like the over here.
Guys, if you're liking what you're hearing from Kyle Hunter, make sure to check out sportsmemo.com for all of Kyle's plays. And we got a coupon code, Hunter40. That's Hunter 40. No spaces, all capital letters. Hunter40 for 40% off his 3-day all access. That will get you college football, NFL, NBA as well. He's hot in the NBA. All those sports this weekend. 3-0 NFL Sunday as well this past weekend. So that's coupon code Hunter40 at checkout. Kyle, staying in the Big Ten, we got Purdue, Minnesota. Looks like the Boilermakers laying 12.5 on the highway, 58 the total.
Purdue, a really well-coached team, impressive athletes. Rondale Moore, one of the best players that some people maybe haven't heard about by this point. You would hope that people have heard about him by now because Purdue's played so well in some of these key games. But really, really impressive athlete. This Purdue team, I really like their coaches a lot. Jeff Brom is excellent. Nick Holt, a tremendous defensive coordinator as well, and I think that goes underrated by many people. Purdue lost a ton of talent on defense last year, at the end of last year, and they've played pretty well on defense. I would lay it with Purdue if I had to take a side here. I see this number coming down at some of the books right now, so if you can lay 11 and a half, I would lay it here with Purdue if I had to take something on the side. As far as the total, I would lean toward the over. I think that Minnesota has enough potential on offense now to have the big play that they could probably score a decent amount of points here. And I think Minnesota's going to have a hard time slowing down Purdue's offense. So a total of 58, I would lean to the over also.
Kyle, we got a AAC matchup, 12 noon Eastern kick. Tulsa at Memphis, 65.5 the total. Looks like 15.5 Memphis laying at home.
I think this is a hard game. This is one of my least favorite ones that we're talking about here today, so I'll make this one quick. Tulsa has no quarterback that can do much of anything at all. It's all about the run game. Memphis, a tremendous offense. Both of these teams go fast. The question is, can Tulsa be efficient enough on offense if you want to take the over? If I had to take something, I'd take the over, but Tulsa is a question mark to me. They're a team that I'd rather stay away from because they try to run. They're not that good at it. They cannot pass, but they play really quickly. So to me, I think this is a pretty good game to stay away from.
All right, heading to the SEC East, South Carolina at Florida, 54 the total. The Gators laying 6 in the Swamp.
All right, so South Carolina and Florida is an interesting one where you've got Muschamp going back against Florida. I couldn't lay the points with this inconsistent Florida offense. I mean, who's the quarterback this week? Who's going to get most of the snaps? I don't think anybody really knows what the quarterback rotation is going to be like for Florida. Florida has potential. They've shown that. Certainly, Florida could win this game by 2 or 3 touchdowns, and it wouldn't surprise me that much. At the same time, I feel like Florida's the team that kind of has to prove it at this point. They've played some really poor games at home this year. I know they beat LSU, but they've had 2 big upset losses at home. And I think this is a Florida team that has questionable motivation right now as well, and I think they might have some team chemistry issues. I think South Carolina comes into this game off putting up a big number last week. I know it was against Ole Miss, but at least they get that explosive offense and get to see themselves being that successful on offense. I think that's helpful going into a game like this. Certainly Muschamp really wants to win this game against his old team. There's no doubt about that. I think South Carolina has the better offense and certainly the better quarterback. I like their up-tempo system that they've finally committed to here at South Carolina. I know for a while South Carolina was kind of back and forth. Should we go ahead and go up-tempo? Muschamp didn't know if he really wanted to do that. Now that they finally committed to it, their offense has been better. I would lean with South Carolina. I'll take the underdog here in this one. I think that this is a game where Florida could easily win this, but like I said, they have to prove it to me before I would want to lay this many points against a quality team.
Kyle, you think the University of Florida fired Muschamp too fast, had too quick of a trigger?
I don't know. I wouldn't say that I think Muschamp's that great of a head coach. He's been a good defensive mind in the past, but I don't know that I think he's a great head coach. At the same time, it surprises me that a program like Florida hasn't really righted the ship after this long. You figure Florida would be a team that, they recruit so well. They're in a great spot to get some tremendous recruits, and they have recruited pretty well. It just seems like when they get there, they haven't been able to maximize their talent. Most people think that Mullen will be able to do that long term, but it is year one, so I guess we'll give him a little bit of a break.
All right. How many more games do we have left here for you, Kyle?
We got Cal and USC.
And then that's it? Okay, so last game up, we got Cal at USC, the Trojans, 48 the total. This one in Los Angeles with the Trojans laying 5 at home.
So I've made it known in the past that I don't think Clay Helton's a good coach at all. I think that USC has underachieved consistently. You look at their recruiting rankings, you look at what those players end up doing, you wonder how USC is not better than they are. I know that they're not a bad team, but they're not the USC that we're used to seeing. Cal is a better team than most people think. They played Washington State really tough last week, lost right at the end there. Cal is getting that respect from the odds makers this week, though. I had Cal last weekend. I don't think I could take them only getting 5 points here. USC certainly has the much higher upside, and Cal's played a couple really tough games here in the last couple weeks. USC is going to commit itself to running the football more with Helton calling the plays now. So keep that in mind as you look at the total. I would lean toward the under in this one, thinking that USC is going to run the football a lot. Cal's defense is pretty good against the run. At the same time, Cal's offense has had a hard time getting anything going this year. So that's why you've seen the total drop a little bit, and still my lean would be toward the under.
Great stuff, Kyle. And guys, remember the coupon code Hunter40 at checkout for his 3-day all-access pass on Sportsmemo.com off the 3-0 NFL Sunday. And been pretty good all year. So, Kyle, thanks for the time. And, guys, best of luck with your bets. We'll be right back with Rob Vino to close out the College Football Every Game on the Board podcast.